Guten Morgen, die Herrschaften. Ich begrüße mich.
Guten Morgen.
Not working for you? Okay, wrong country.
Wrong crowd.
They're tough in the morning. A little foreign language, and what do you know? So, my name is Mark Holmes. I'm the chapter business attorney. I try to help people, and as we start every new year, we should all think about what's working for us and what's not in our business, right? And I thought about what's working for me in my business, and it's usually the same old thing. I'm a business attorney, and I do something bizarre. Watch this. Phone rings, I pick it up, and I say, hello. And someone says, are you a business attorney? And I go, yes. And they go, really? No, I'm not the receptionist, I'm the attorney. That's stunning. That's a winner. Picking up the phone, right? I like picking up the phone because, all right, I'll confess, I like people. I really do. And I like to try to help them. And so what differentiates me from a lot of other people is I'm not interested in your legal stuff because that's interesting, but I'm more interested in seeing if I can solve your problem. And so after I hear whatever spiel the person on the other side of the phone has, I usually like to say, so that's nice, because usually they have to vent, right? Because they're upset. I usually like to ask them, so what's the problem? And we try to get to the problem, and we see if we can't help them, right? Just with some advice or with direction to where resources are, stuff like that, and get them on their way. Because you see, that's a good thing. I'm one of the few people who will get on the phone and convince somebody on the other end of the phone that they just don't need to hire me. Now, why would you not want to hire me? Well, there are a lot of good reasons, but one of the big reasons is I cost a lot of money, right? I ain't cheap. And if you have a really small problem that you could take care of yourself and do it inexpensively without an attorney, and I can help you do that, good on you, right? Because that'll save you a lot of wasted money. It makes me very angry when I hear about attorneys who are hired to help with problems that can be taken care of by the client if they just know where to go. That's just not me. I don't want to do that. So that's another thing that differentiates me. Another thing I try to do is when people are starting companies, because I'm in the business of business, I try to limit their exposure, right? You limit your risk. Most people, when they start up a company, they don't have a lot of extra cash, and they don't want to waste it on legal services. So I'm one of the few people you'll ever meet who has a flat fee schedule for a whole list of services that I do. So that essentially when you say, I'm going to incorporate or set up an estate plan or do a shareholder agreement or do a contract, you know exactly how much it's going to cost and no more. That should make you feel good, right? Because one of the worst things about a relationship, if you start out with the relationship, say, oh, okay, we're going to have this set of expectations, and then your expectations are not met, then you have a bad relationship, and usually the relationship stops. And I found by using flat fee services to start off relationships, we usually have a positive outcome every time, and that makes the relationship go forward, which is good, because that means the person that you dealt with on one transaction will probably want to use you on another transaction.
That's smart.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, something just to think about, right? Pick up the phone, try to help people, try to limit their risk and exposure. Yay, there it is. Does that sound legal? No, that's not legal at all. It has nothing to do with law. It just has to do with, well, try to be a mensch, try to be a decent human being. If you are a decent human being, and all of the people in here are, right, you're going to do well, no matter what you do. And that's one of the things I've learned in the last 28 years I've been doing this. Now, I was supposed to tell you about the new laws. Anybody care about the new laws?
Yes.
No?
Yes, of course.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I handed this thing out 2 weeks ago before I went to Missouri. And I want to talk to you about, one, the minimum wage. Everybody seems to know about that, so I won't dwell on that. That's going up. But the independent contractor thing is really important. It's really hard to have independent contractors now. They have to be people who are not a core part of your business. A good example is a contractor. Right? We'll take HVAC. You can't, if you try to have people who are actually installing HVAC systems as independent contractors, you're going to get in trouble. I'll tell you that straight up. If you're in the the junk business and you have people who are driving trucks and picking stuff up and you're doing it on an independent contractor basis, you're going to get in trouble. It goes all the way around the room. Anything that's really about the core, right, of what your business is, if you try to use independent contractors, you're going to end up in trouble now. And how did this all come about? The truckers, you gotta thank the truckers, yeah. They had a big fight, and this has been going on for years now, about whether or not truckers should be independent contractors or whether or not they should be employees of the companies they work for. And they decided no, they have to be employees, because otherwise you're taking advantage of them and they're not getting Social Security benefits and all this other stuff. So it's just one of those things, okay? Now, the trick is most people who've been using independent contractors for many, many, many years don't really know how to slide into the, well, let's get some employees and do the payroll thing. Well, I happen to be quite helpful in that respect because I set up these employee regimes, right, for people who don't know anything about employee regimes, and I try to do it in a way that makes sense to them, makes it very easy to operate, and makes it very painless. And guess what? I do that on a flat fee basis too. Ha! Isn't that cool? Why? Because I've done this a bunch of times, and it's really straightforward from my perspective. And I think once I translate what I understand about the law, which is a bunch of gibberish, right, that no human understands when you first run at it, once I translate it, it makes a lot more sense and it makes it easier for the person running the business to come to grips with. So that's an important thing. So if you know people who are using independent contractors, tell them they have to come see me so I can talk to them about it. And that's one thing, right? Settlement agreements, the Me Too movement, right, is basically you can't have settlement agreements that make these sexual harassment and proceedings secret anymore. Where did that come from? Well, obviously there's all these non-disclosure agreements that were signed, and now people were mad about that because that makes people shut up about all this bad abuse that was going on, and they don't want that anymore. So you can't have that. I don't think anybody in this room has any real problem with that, but that's something you need to know about.
So no full disclosure.
Yeah. So, what else do I want to talk to you about? Oh, there's this new thing with basically people who can have home food and home food enterprises. Yeah, people who will bake stuff in their garages and stuff and go out and sell it. You can do that now. They're putting together regulations so that you can actually do that. And I actually have a client. I have a client who does that. And she's very, very interested because she's a really good baker, and so she wants to do that. And now we finally have the opportunity to do it. And she's fixing up her garage and all of her baking stuff to do that, and I think that'll be kind of fun. Just the first of the year.
Well, isn't there like an upward limit though of like $50,000 that you can?
Yeah. Yeah, there are limits, and they're putting together regulations to basically impose limits because they obviously don't want full service restaurants running out of people's garages. But no, really, that makes sense.
It's meant to inspire entrepreneurship too, right?
Well, no, it's actually meant to give people who wouldn't otherwise have access to a business the opportunity to actually run a business. And it's what they call a micro business, right? That's awesome. And there are a lot of really good micro businesses out there. I thought this would be fun. Drivers have to move to an adjacent lane or slow down when attempting to pass a waste collection truck with its amber lights flashing. I thought that would be
Wait, what are you talking about?
AB 2115.
Yeah, I thought you'd find that kind of interesting.
Oh, on the last page.
So I thought that was kind of neat. Is that one of the things that I saw when I was in Missouri, that when you had a funeral procession, everybody in the town, because it's a really small town, actually pulls off to the side of the road and stops. And then the procession goes by because there's like a police car and it's flashing and stuff. And I'd never seen that before because I've lived here in Orange County for years. And the procession goes by and people go, they're going to the cemetery, who cares, right? But it was kind of neat. It was very respectful and very charming to see that. It was kind of neat. So, yeah, basically, those are the hot topics. All right, any questions? Any protests, objections? What? Oh, hi.
I have a question about paid family leave. So
Yes.
how does that work? Like we have a new employee, she's young.
Uh-huh.
If she gets pregnant and has a baby, how is that?
That's incredibly complex because that's part of your employee regime, and basically that fits into that whole complex of types of leave that you have. You have unpaid family leave, now you have some paid family leave. You also have sick leave, right? And then some people have vacation, and then some people have personal days off in their businesses. And so you have to weave through that very complex structure, right, to basically make sure that you don't run afoul. And that's what we do with the employee regime. Because first of all, you have to set up your structure. You have to identify what leaves you're required to have and what leaves you basically elect to have, and then basically line them all up so that they all make sense, so that when somebody shows up, you go, okay, I guess we go here, there, and that's what we do. It's not easy, right? And because we're doing these things piecemeal rather than doing them all at once, it gets incredibly complex. And you see, that's what happens when you build a structure, right? One block at a time. It gets very, very complicated. And I wish I could tell you right off the bat, this is how to do it, but no, unfortunately, you have to sit down, we have to work the whole thing out, and we can talk about it in depth online if you want. Offline, I'm sorry. Yes, Dr. Martin.
A hygienist that works for me only in emergencies told me that she can only work for me so many times a year, and after that, I have to consider her an employee. Is that correct?
No, actually, she is an employee. So don't stop.
She's not on the regular payroll.
No, here's the thing. She's what you call an intermittent employee, but she's still an employee.
So that's why I'm asking you, is her information correct or not?
Well, no, I'm telling you what the information is. The correct information is she's an employee, end stop, period.
Just intermittent.
So from day one, we have to take things out of her paycheck?
Yes, absolutely.
So she gets a W-2 is what you're saying?
Yes, yeah, she's a W-2 employee. She just doesn't get all of the benefits of perhaps a full-time employee who may be entitled to vacation and other benefits, right? She also accrues leaves, right, at a different rate than the other ones. So, but here's the thing, bottom line, she's still an employee. Okay.
If that, I'm a graphic artist that works for
It's
me.
confusing.
She's very seldom, but also works for about 10 other people.
Mm-hmm.
So is she employee of everybody, or how does that work?
She's probably an employee of numerous people.
But nobody's claiming her as an employee.
Right.
Now, right?
No.
Yes.
Right.
So you see, you could end up, and I've got one coming up in about 30 days, where essentially you have 3 employers that are taken to the Labor Commission, and the person who worked for them says that they're all employers, and that person's entitled to wages based on basically working for them as an employee. And it's kind of fun because all of the employers say, no, it was that person. No, it was that person. It's ridiculous because the question is, did this person contribute to a core function of your business, right? And if so, then they're an employee. You should be paying wages.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the natural question is, how does this affect the real estate industry where we are all independent contractors, we actually have our own businesses, we have our own entities, we have our own licenses, we hang it with a brokerage, and then we run a business.
Yes.
We're not told that we have to be anywhere.
How different are you
anytime.
from anybody else in this room?
The person that's there doesn't tell me I have to run my own business. And
So.
Well, let's put it this way. Nobody tells me how to run my law firm, but guess what? I have employees in my law firm
that's
because
different. If I hired somebody, to help me with that, then I have to hire them.
Yes, I think you're in for a rude awakening because when they're administrative and they help basically advance the core function of your business, you're going to find that you're looking at them as an employee. That's the sad truth.
Maybe he's talking about the relationship.
With me and the broker.
No, with you and the broker, that's a different matter.
That's
'cause you have-
all I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about people who work for you.
I don't have anybody.
Okay,
working
well,
for me.
then you're basically
And I
talking
won't
about
ever.
2 separate businesses that deal with each other.
Okay, well, I'm just saying the real estate industry itself is you've got brokers, and then you have the agents that hang their license, but are
But now
all
you do
run-
have agents that have transaction coordinators, not to interrupt, and on the loan side too. So we have people that are like TCs, right?
That's right.
And
So
they're not W-2'd, they're typically 1099.
Well, you see, there's going to be a big shakeup in the business, right, based on that, because if you're licensed and you have your own business and you have a relationship with another business, it's like a subcat contract.
That's what I was saying, so I have electricians, right, that work,
Yes.
that do work on some of my jobs. I don't use the same electrician every time, but I use these electricians a lot.
Yes, and they all have their separate business, and they
Right.
have their separate licenses, and they have their separate insurance, right? That's different, right? I'm talking about people who come and sit in your office or sit in your business somewhere and actually do work for you. Because when they're under your control and they're advancing a core part of your business, then they're going to be employees.
You'll 1099.
Yeah, that's, and by the way, this is being fought over, not just in the real estate business, but in like Uber and Lyft, that's a big deal, right? Truck drivers, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
All these things where people were hired forever, and it's also involving strippers too, by the way. It's bizarre.
That's a cash business.
You mean I have to pay those as employees, all of them?
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, that's becoming a thing because it's very difficult for people to do these businesses for any length of time without accruing any benefits, and that's what, I'm sorry, let me finish. That's why businesses are having to take on these roles, because you're finding people have been independent contractor for years, and they're entitled to no Social Security benefits. Why? Because they never put a dime into Social Security. And you see, that's a real problem. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, sometimes we call a service that gets us people when we're in a bind. Somebody gets sick, we need somebody right away.
That's an employment agency,
Yeah.
Dr. Mike.
So is that different?
Yes, it's different because they work for them and they may basically be provided to you under contract, right, by the employee agency to your firm. But they work for the employee agency.
But if it's just someone that we know that we get, then we have to take out of the paycheck.
Yes, because they're your employee. If they work for you.
Even if it's just once in a while.
Yes, even if it's just once in a
Thank you.
while.
Is that, it seems like it's great because that employment agency is providing someone to your business that's core representative of your business.
Yes.
For some length of time.
Yeah, but you see that they're actually the employee of that employee agency, and they are basically rented to you on a contract basis, right? But all of their expenses and Social Security and everything are covered by that other company, right?
Or it should be anyways.
Well, if they're not, then there's going to be a big problem. I'll tell you that. Yes, sir.
So I'm like Todd, I hired Will to come in and do work in my office. He's licensed and bonded and everything else. I can 1099 him.
Yes, that's because he has a separate business, right?
Correct.
Right? And your core business is not massage, right?
Correct.
Your core business is chiropractic.
Correct.
Okay, so you see, don't get it twisted, as they say. Don't get it twisted.
Nice play on words.
We're talking. I thought you like that.
I see a lot of great.
So here's the thing: they have to be your core business. If you're Terry and you do pest control, right, and you're hiring people to go out and do pest control, they have to be your employees. Why? Because that's the core function of your business. So and if you have questions, talk to me offline, because everybody's got individual situations and they're complex, and that's what we talk about, and I'm happy to do that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.